and loyalty. And if you think it couldn't happen to you, I thought the same. Subscribe to Heartfelt Tales Unfold. Because some stories, the ones we hide the deepest, are the ones we all need to hear. I used to love hearing Mark laugh with his friends. Back when things were simpler, when the sound of their voices filling the house meant we were alive, connected. I'd spend hours setting out snacks, lighting candles, making sure the living room looked just right. I wanted him to be proud. I wanted us to be seen. Now their laughter feels like a reminder of everything I've lost. It's been 12 years. 12 years since I said yes to forever. But forever starts to feel very long when you're lonely inside it. Mark used to see me. Really see me. Now, he sees his phone. He sees contracts. He sees the next deal, the next flight, the next thing that keeps him away from me, even when he's sitting right beside me. I try to tell myself he loves me. And maybe he does. But love without presence feels like absence wearing a mask. And then there's me. A woman in her late 30s. Not old, but not the girl he once courted with flowers and slow kisses. Now I'm the one who folds the laundry, pays the bills, smiles through dinners where he barely looks up from his plate. And his friends? James, Chris, Eric. They're here every Friday night. Poker night. It used to be our tradition, something we looked forward to. Now it's his escape, and my performance. I cook. I serve. I smile. And when I retreat to the kitchen, I hear them laughing without me, talking about things I no longer understand, sharing a world I'm not invited into. And yet, sometimes I catch their eyes lingering, longer than they should, long enough to remind me I'm still a woman, still visible, at least to someone. Our home. It's a beautiful cage. Soft lighting, warm walls, framed photos of smiles that feel like strangers now. On the surface, everything looks perfect. But the air is cold between us. Colder than anyone outside these walls would ever guess. And so I move through the motions. Perfect wife. Perfect hostess. Hiding the ache beneath practiced smiles. But even practiced smiles can falter. Even a loyal heart can grow tired of being invisible. And then, one night. One ordinary night that started like any other poker night. I noticed something. Something in their eyes I hadn't seen before. Not pity. Not politeness. Something hungrier. And if I'm honest, something that called to the hunger I'd tried so hard to deny. It was just another Friday night. At least, that's what I told myself. I stood in front of the mirror longer than usual. Nothing flashy. Nothing that would raise a brow. Just a little extra. A blouse that fit a touch closer. Lipstick I hadn't worn in months. A spritz of perfume that used to make Mark linger, back when he noticed. I wasn't trying to start anything. I just wanted to remember what it felt like, to be seen. To feel alive in my own skin again. The doorbell rang. Laughter followed, loud and familiar. James. Chris. Eric. Arms full of beer and cigars, smiles wide, eyes tired from the week, just like always. I welcomed them in, smile practiced, but shaky underneath. Mark barely looked up from his phone until the cards came out. Then, as if on cue, he lit up, laughing, dealing, joking like the man I used to know. I brought out the snacks, poured their drinks, hovered at the edge of their world, hoping, praying for some small pull into it. That's when I caught James' gaze. It wasn't accidental. Not this time. He held my eyes just a second too long. A second that spoke a language we both understood. Chris followed. A glance that drifted, returned, drifted again. And Eric, his compliment slid out so casually I almost convinced myself I misheard. If Mark doesn't appreciate you, someone else will. Half a joke. Half a truth neither of us wanted to claim. I laughed it off, cheeks burning. But inside, something shifted. A crack in the wall I'd built around myself. The night wore on. Cards shuffled, bets called, the air thick with smoke and unspoken things. Mark drank more than usual, the wear of another long week showing on his face. By midnight, he was slumped back on the couch, glass in hand, lost to the world. I stood, ready to gather the empty bottles, to escape upstairs before the ache inside me grew too loud. That's when I heard it. "Stay. Have a drink with us." James' voice, low and inviting. I hesitated. The air felt different now, charged, uncertain. I should have gone upstairs. I should have left it all behind. But I didn't. I told myself it was harmless. Just company. Just conversation. But something inside me stirred. A part I'd tried so hard to silence. And when I sat down, that's when everything began to blur. I can still feel that chair beneath me. Hardwood, cold leather, and yet, in that moment, it felt warmer than my own bed. The three of them sat there, cards forgotten, drinks in hand, eyes a little too steady. And me, sitting across from them, heartbeat loud in my ears. I kept telling myself, it's nothing, just a drink, just talk. But something in the room had shifted. The air felt heavier, slower, thick with things no one dared say aloud. James leaned forward, pouring me another glass. For the lady of the house. His fingers brushed mine, just for a second, but long enough. Long enough to set a spark crawling up my arm. I should have moved my hand. I should have gotten up right then and there. But I didn't. I sat there. I let them look. And God help me, I let myself enjoy it. Chris smiled, his gaze resting on me a little longer than before. You don't know how lucky Mark is. His voice trailed off, eyes saying the rest. That should have been my cue to go. A warning loud enough to drown out every ache inside me. But my heart, it wasn't pounding from fear. It was pounding from something else. From being seen. For the first time in what felt like forever. Mark hadn't looked at me that way in years. Hadn't reached across the table just to touch me, just to be near me. And now, here they were. 3 pairs of eyes that saw a woman. Not a wife, not a mother, not a fixture in the background. Just me. I told myself it was harmless. They were just watching. I wasn't doing anything wrong. And yet, with every passing second, that life felt thinner, more fragile. I could feel the guilt coiling in my chest, wrapping tighter and tighter, but beneath it, beneath the shame, was something darker. Something desperate. Something that whispered, stay. Just a little longer. Feel this a little more. So I leaned in. I laughed when I should have excused myself. I let their compliments settle over me like a second skin. And when I caught James watching me with a look that left no room for doubt, I didn't look away. I should have. I know I should have. But loneliness does strange things. It twists your logic, bends your resolve. And soon, what felt unthinkable before starts to feel inevitable. By the time Mark stirred on the couch, half awake, half gone, my pulse was racing for reasons I could barely admit to myself. I stood quickly, muttering some excuse about needing to check on him. But even as I walked away, I could feel their eyes following me, lingering, hungry. And the worst part? I didn't hate it. I wanted it. I craved it. But the next time they came over, it wasn't just them wishing they'd watch. It was me, wishing they would. The next Friday, I stood in front of my closet longer than I wanted to admit. It wasn't an accident. Not this time. I told myself it was just for me. To feel beautiful. To feel alive. But deep down, I knew exactly why I was choosing that dress. Why I dabbed perfume behind my ears. Why I let my hair fall loose instead of twisting it up the way Mark liked. I wanted them to see me. And I wanted to see them seeing me. The doorbell rang. The sound sent a thrill through my chest that had nothing to do with hospitality. I told myself to breathe. To stay composed. To keep this innocent. But the moment I opened that door and saw their eyes flicker, just for a beat, I knew I'd already lost that fight. Their stares were no longer accidental, and neither was my smile. Mark greeted them with his usual worn-out cheer, already distracted, already half checked out. He barely noticed what I was wearing. Barely noticed me at all. But they did. I moved through the room more slowly that night. Set the drinks down with careful hands. Bent just a little deeper when picking up stray chips from the floor. Let my voice soften when they asked me questions, lingering on my words just long enough. And they noticed. I could feel their gazes, trailing me, heat blooming across my skin with every step I took. I should have felt ashamed. Should have hated myself for craving this attention. But I didn't. I reveled in it. Every glance, every pause, every stolen moment felt like water to a woman dying of thirst. Mark, as always, was oblivious. Focused on his cards, his drink, his endless stories about deals and deadlines. His world, one I was no longer a part of. But the world unfolding in that room, the one between me and his friends, that world was electric. At one point, while pouring another round, my hand trembled just slightly, and James leaned closer, his voice low, barely audible. "You like this, don't you?" I didn't answer. I couldn't. Because the truth was written all over my skin, in the flush of my cheeks, the quickening of my breath. I liked it far too much. More than I was ready to admit. And as the night wore on, as their glances grew bolder, as the space between us seemed to hum with unsaid things, I felt something inside me unraveling. Piece by piece, reason giving way to want. Guilt battling with hunger. Loneliness folding into longing. And then came the night where nothing would be the same again. It was a small thing, really. Mark's phone buzzing on the table. A name flashing across the screen, one of his clients. Urgent. He sighed, already rising to take the call. "I'll be in the office. Don't wait up." And just like that, he was gone. Door shut. Silence left behind. And us, me and them, alone. At first, no one moved. The air thick, heavy with what none of us were willing to name. Cards forgotten. Drinks untouched. Eyes only on me. I stood there for a moment, torn between reason and something darker. I should have gone upstairs. Should have followed Mark's voice down the hall and locked myself behind our bedroom door. But I didn't move. I could feel the weight of their gazes, hungry and unspoken. And inside me, something answered. James was the first to speak. His voice low, almost playful, except it wasn't. "You know, we'd love to watch you dance. Just for us." My breath caught. Time seemed to stutter, the room shrinking around me. I wanted to say no. Wanted to find the words, the will to stop this before it went any further. But instead, I hesitated. And sometimes, that's all it takes. A heartbeat too long. A silence that says more than words ever could. Some betrayals don't start with touches. They start with gazes, with yes you never speak aloud. I told myself it was still innocent. No one had laid a hand on me. No vows had been broken yet. And still, as the music hummed softly from the speaker, as their eyes followed my every move, I found myself stepping forward. Slowly, breath trembling, heart pounding in ways I hadn't felt in years. I let my body sway, not fully provocative, no grand gestures, just enough. Just enough to answer what their eyes had been asking all night. And they watched. Oh God, they watched. Not a sound in the room now, only shallow breaths, eyes fixed, tension drawn so tight it might snap. Each movement, each shift of fabric against skin, felt louder than any word. And with each passing second, the part of me that still knew right from wrong grew quieter, smaller. James leaned forward, voice a whisper now, meant only for me. "You wished this too, didn't you?" I closed my eyes, the weight of it crashing through me. And when I opened them, when I finally answered, my voice was barely more than a breath. "I do." When Mark finally came back downstairs, the air had shifted. I could feel it, thick, fragile, ready to crack with the wrong word or glance. His friends straightened, cleared throats, reached for their drinks with hands a little too steady. And me, I forced a smile so tight it barely held. Heart racing, throat dry. Mark didn't seem to notice. Too tired, too distracted, too used to tuning out the world, including me. Long call, he muttered, sinking onto the couch. Sorry, guys. Where were we? But no one answered right away. Cards were shuffled, half-hearted jokes tossed like broken lifelines into the space between us. I sat there, frozen in my own skin, trying to pretend, trying to breathe. Inside, my heart thundered, guilt pounding in time with something darker I didn't want to name. When they finally left, quick goodbyes, eyes avoiding mine, I closed the door behind them and leaned against it. Breath shaky, legs weak. It didn't mean anything. It was just a dance. Nothing happened. I whispered the lies to myself like a prayer. But they didn't stick. Not this time. Later, in bed beside Mark's sleeping form, the ache only grew. Not just guilt. Something else. A part of me that had woken and didn't want to go back to sleep. Then, the vibration of my phone on the nightstand. A single message lighting up the screen. I can't stop thinking about last night. From James. I stared at it. Hands trembling. Stomach churning. But beneath the guilt, beneath the shame, was something darker. Excitement. I hated that I felt it. Hated the warmth that bloomed beneath my ribs at those words. But I couldn't deny it, and neither could they. The next poker night, the way they looked at me had changed. No more casual glances. No more polite smiles. Now, their eyes held something else. Something bolder. Hungrier. And me? I wore my best mask. Perfect wife. Perfect hostess. But inside, every nerve buzzed. Every step felt choreographed in a dance I wasn't sure I could stop. Mark noticed something. How could he not? Everything okay? He asked once, brow furrowed. They seemed different tonight. I smiled, kissed his cheek, lied through my teeth. They're just tired. Long week, that's all. But we both knew it wasn't true. And then, one of them asked me for something more. I never touched them. Not once. But sometimes, the watching is worse. Sometimes, it's the yes you never speak that stains you the most. I told myself that, over and over. As if repeating it would somehow make it true. As if that line, thin as it had become, still meant I hadn't crossed it. But every time I replayed that night, every time their eyes returned in the dark hours when sleep refused to come, I knew better. I asked myself, was I still faithful? Or had I already crossed the line? And the answer I feared most was the one I couldn't deny. The guilt grew like a shadow inside me, stretching longer with every passing day. But so did something else. Something far more dangerous. The fantasies. They came unbidden. In the shower. In the kitchen. Lying beside Mark while he scrolled through another screen, another life that no longer seemed to include me. I would see James' eyes, hear the way Chris' voice dipped when he spoke my name, feel the weight of that question lingering in the air. You wished this too, didn't you? And I'd burn with shame. And with longing. Mark never noticed. Or maybe he chose not to. His world was full of numbers, of deadlines, of things he could control. Not of me. Not anymore. And with every Friday that passed, his friends grew bolder. Touches that lingered just a second too long. Compliments that brushed the edge of propriety, daring me to flinch. Smiles that spoke of secrets we could no longer pretend didn't exist. And me? I felt trapped. Trapped in a loop of guilt and craving I couldn't escape. I hated myself for wanting it. For waiting for it. But I did. God help me. I did. Some nights, I stare at myself in the mirror. Hands gripping the sink, breath shallow. And I wonder, who have I become? The woman who built this home? Who swore to love and honor the man upstairs? Or the woman who now waits for glances from men who aren't her husband? Who lets silence answer questions she no longer has the strength to refuse? I don't know anymore. And that's what terrifies me most. Have you ever done something, not to betray, but because you needed to feel alive again? Because the silence in your